When I think about what truly defines who we are, I often return to the quiet moments, the pauses between duty and devotion, the stillness where reflection becomes a bridge between the past and the future. It is in those moments that I begin to understand that identity is not built in grand gestures or public occasions, but in the quiet rhythm of the heart. There is something deeply personal in realizing that who we become is shaped by those we love, by the values that guide us, and by the unseen lessons of everyday life. In my life, reflection has never been about solitude alone. It has always been about connection, about looking inward to understand how I can look outward with greater purpose. The world often feels vast, full of voices, movements, and change, yet within that immensity, each of us carries a small, distinct note that adds to the greater harmony of life. I have come to believe that our lives are like songs, written not only by our own choices, but also by the people who walk beside us. The verses may differ, but the melody always finds its way back to love, compassion, and duty. When I look back on the path I have walked so far, I see moments where I learned the power of listening to others, yes, but also listening to the quiet truth within myself. There are times when the world expects certainty, when decisions must be made and steps must be taken. Yet, in those times, it is reflection that reminds me that strength does not always appear as confidence. It sometimes appears as patience, humility, and the courage to keep learning. Connection, I have learned, begins with understanding. It begins with the willingness to see others not as strangers, but as reflections of the same humanity we hold within. Every person carries their own story, their own rhythm, their own song, and when we take the time to listen, to really listen, we find that their stories shape our own understanding of the world. That is what makes belonging so profound. It is not about similarity, but about shared feeling, shared respect, shared hope. There is also a kind of beauty in imperfection. In every note slightly off key, there is sincerity. In every step taken with uncertainty, there is growth. The expectations placed upon us, by history, by society, by ourselves, can sometimes feel immense. But reflection helps us see that even within those expectations, we are allowed to breathe, to feel, to rediscover ourselves. It is not weakness to pause and think. It is a form of wisdom. Connection also means recognizing that we are part of something larger. I have often felt that being part of a family, of a nation, of a generation, carries both privilege and responsibility. The privilege to learn from those who came before, and the responsibility to carry forward their lessons with integrity. It is in this sense that personal reflection becomes a bridge between the individual and the collective. We do not live apart from one another, we live intertwined. Our choices, our actions, our voices, each has an impact that reaches beyond what we can see. I think often of the people who have guided me, not only through words, but through example. Those who have shown that leadership is not about being seen, but about seeing others. Those who remind me that service is not a role, but a mindset. Through their quiet strength, I have learned that the most lasting influence is not found in titles or recognition, but in how we touch the lives of others. Connection is born from sincerity, from doing what is right even when no one is watching. In moments of reflection, I sometimes ask myself what truly endures. The answer is rarely material. It is the memory of kindness, the comfort of trust, the bond of family, the sense of purpose that ties us to something eternal. These are the things that give life meaning beyond achievement. They are the echoes of our humanity, the song that continues long after the final note has faded. And so, I believe that reflection and connection are inseparable. To understand oneself is to understand one's place in the greater harmony of the world. To connect deeply with others is to discover parts of ourselves we never knew existed. Each encounter, each conversation, each act of generosity adds another layer to who we are becoming. We are, in essence, a collection of shared moments, woven together by empathy, courage, and love. There are days when reflection brings clarity, and others when it brings more questions than answers. But that too is part of the journey. Growth is not a straight path, it is a song with many variations. It rises and falls, sometimes softly, sometimes with strength, but always with purpose. What matters most is that we continue to listen, to ourselves, to one another, to the world around us. As I stand before others or walk among them, I try to remember that connection is not created through words alone, but through presence. It is found in looking someone in the eye and truly seeing them, in understanding their hopes and fears, in recognizing that despite our differences, our hearts beat to the same rhythm. That awareness is what gives meaning to responsibility. It transforms duty into compassion, and tradition into a living bond between generations. In the end, reflection is not just about who we have been, but who we wish to become. It calls us to carry forward what is good, to learn from what has been difficult, and to give our best to those who will come after us. Each of us has the power to be a bridge, to connect what was with what will be, and perhaps that is what the song of life truly is, a melody composed of countless voices, all striving toward harmony. When I think of my own journey, I see it as part of a greater composition. Every lesson learned, every challenge faced, every moment of joy or doubt has added its note to the music. There is comfort in knowing that none of us sings alone. The harmony we create together is stronger than any single voice. So, as I continue to learn, to serve, and to grow, I hold close this belief that reflection keeps us grounded and connection keeps us alive. They remind us that our worth is not measured by what we possess, but by what we give, and that the truest expression of who we are is found not in perfection, but in authenticity, in the courage to keep listening, to keep learning, and to keep loving. Because in the end, our lives are like a song, unique, evolving, and meant to be shared. And when we live with sincerity, when we open ourselves to others with grace and humility, we become part of something far greater than ourselves. That, I believe, is the music that endures. There are moments in life when one begins to understand that responsibility is not a burden placed upon us, but a path that gives our actions meaning. It is not imposed, it is accepted. It grows quietly within us, shaped by the trust others place in our hands, and by the awareness that every decision, no matter how small, carries the weight of consequence. For me, this understanding has never come suddenly. It has deepened with time, with experience, and with the quiet reflection that accompanies growing into oneself. Responsibility begins in the smallest gestures. It begins with showing up, with keeping promises, with listening even when silence would be easier. It is knowing that our words matter, that our actions ripple beyond what we see. It means standing for something greater than comfort or convenience. Standing for what is right, even when no one is watching. True responsibility is not about being perfect, but about striving each day to be consistent, to be fair, and to be kind. Service, in turn, is the most human expression of responsibility. It is how responsibility comes alive. To serve is not simply to act. It is to act with heart. It means recognizing that we exist not in isolation, but in a vast web of connections, where the well, Being of one affects the well-being of all. Service is not confined to roles or titles. It begins in compassion. It is found in helping without expectation, in offering time, understanding, or presence to those who need it. There is something profound in learning that leadership and service are not opposites. They are reflections of the same truth. To lead is to serve is to honor the trust others give you. I have come to believe that genuine leadership is not about seeking attention, but about giving it to those whose voices must be heard. It is about creating spaces where others can grow, where their dignity is recognized, and their worth affirmed. Togetherness gives meaning to both responsibility and service. Without others, our purpose would remain incomplete. Togetherness is not merely being side by side. It is walking forward with shared understanding, shared respect, and shared hope. It is the quiet assurance that we are not alone in our efforts, that our collective strength can overcome what would be impossible alone. There is comfort in unity, but there is also power. The kind of power that transforms division into collaboration and fear into courage. Throughout my life, I have witnessed the importance of community. In moments of challenge, it is community that sustains us. In moments of joy, it is community that multiplies our happiness. The essence of togetherness is that it does not erase individuality, it enriches it. When we bring our differences together with humility, we create something stronger than any single person could achieve. We become a living testament to what shared purpose can accomplish. Responsibility, service, and togetherness are not abstract ideas, they are lived values. They must be practiced every day. They require patience, discipline, and compassion. And perhaps most importantly, they require faith. Faith in others, faith in the future, and faith in the idea that what we do today matters. It is this belief that gives weight to even the simplest acts of care. I have often reflected on how easily the world can become fragmented when we forget our common ties. But every time we choose empathy over indifference, every time we choose to build rather than to divide, we bring back the harmony that defines our shared humanity. The choice to serve, to act with responsibility, to remain united. These choices shape the world we pass on to others. They are the inheritance we leave not in words, but in deeds. There is a quiet strength in service that does not seek recognition. It is the strength of those who work behind the scenes, who uplift others without needing to be seen. These people remind us that greatness is not found in applause, but in integrity. They are the quiet builders of progress, the unseen harmony that holds communities together. In them we find an example of what it truly means to live with purpose. Togetherness also requires humility. It asks us to listen as much as we speak, to understand rather than to judge. It means recognizing that no one stands above another, that wisdom can come from any voice, and that we are all teachers and learners in the same world. The willingness to learn from one another is the beginning of peace. Responsibility is not always easy. It asks for balance. It asks that we remember who we are while remaining open to what the world needs us to become. It is both privilege and test, but it is also what gives our lives direction. To wake each morning and know that our choices matter, that they can bring comfort, justice, or hope to others, is a quiet form of fulfillment. It gives meaning to effort and value to time. When I think about service, I think about the people who have dedicated their lives to others. Teachers who inspire curiosity, caregivers who bring light to those in pain, volunteers who give their time to communities in need. Their actions may seem small, but their impact is immense. They remind us that service is not measured in scale, but in sincerity. And when I think about togetherness, I think about the way a family, a nation, or even a group of strangers can find common purpose when guided by empathy. Togetherness transforms responsibility into collective strength. It turns uncertainty into shared resolve. It makes us realize that even when we face challenges that feel overwhelming, we do not face them alone. Responsibility, service, and togetherness form a kind of moral harmony. Each one strengthens the other. Responsibility gives direction to our service. Service gives depth to our togetherness. And togetherness gives hope to our responsibility. When they come together, they form the rhythm of a life lived with purpose and grace. There are days when it feels easier to step back, to let others carry the weight. But the world moves forward when each of us carries a part of it. When we choose to serve, when we act with honesty, when we stand united, we keep that movement alive. That is how change happens. Not in grand declarations, but in steady, sincere effort. In the end, to live responsibly is to understand that our lives are intertwined. To serve is to give meaning to that connection. And to stand together is to affirm our shared humanity. These are not temporary virtues, they are timeless foundations on which peace, trust, and progress are built. As I continue to learn and grow, I hold these truths close. That responsibility is not a weight, but a calling. That service is not sacrifice, but fulfillment. And that togetherness is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of unity. In this understanding, I find hope. Hope that our generation, and those that follow, will continue to strengthen the ties that bind us. Hope that service will remain the heart of leadership, and that responsibility will remain the measure of character. And above all, hope that togetherness will continue to remind us that no matter where we come from, or what paths we follow, we are all part of one shared song, one that grows richer each time we choose to sing it together. Hope is a quiet force. It does not shout, yet it has the power to move nations, to heal hearts, and to guide us through the most uncertain paths. It begins as a small light, sometimes barely visible, but once it is nurtured, it becomes a flame that can withstand darkness. I have come to see hope not as something we wait for, but as something we create. Through our choices, through our courage, and through our belief that the future can always be better than the past. Hope grows when we trust in one another. It grows when we decide to see possibility where others see limitation. It grows when we remind ourselves that every generation carries within it the capacity to renew what came before. I have seen hope reflected in the faces of people who work tirelessly for their communities, in those who give without seeking recognition, and in those who continue to dream even when circumstances are difficult. It is in those people that the spirit of unity also lives, for hope and unity are inseparable. One gives strength to the other. Unity is not the absence of difference. It is the harmony that arises when those differences coexist with respect. It does not mean thinking the same, but moving forward with the same purpose. There is something deeply human about realizing that what connects us is greater than what divides us. Our language, our traditions, our stories may vary, but the values that sustain us, compassion, dignity, justice, and kindness, are shared by all. When we choose to build upon what unites us, rather than what separates us, we discover that unity is not a dream, but a daily practice. I have learned that moving forward requires both courage and patience. The world changes quickly, and it is easy to feel overwhelmed by its pace. But progress is not measured only in speed. It is measured in direction. Moving forward means taking each step with purpose, aware that each decision shapes the path for those who will follow. It asks for faith in the unseen, and for the humility to know that our role is part of a much greater story. There is strength in continuity. The generations before us built foundations of values, principles, and sacrifices that allow us to stand where we do today. But their work is not complete. It becomes our responsibility to carry it forward, to adapt, to protect, to renew. Hope is the bridge between the past and the future. It reminds us that what we inherit is not only tradition, but also the possibility of transformation. Unity, too, asks us to look beyond ourselves. It asks us to listen, to reach out, to understand. It is not built by words alone, but by actions that demonstrate care. A simple gesture of empathy, an act of forgiveness, a willingness to collaborate. These are the bricks that construct the bridge toward a more harmonious world. When we come together in purpose, barriers begin to dissolve, and the collective good becomes stronger than any individual ambition. Hope is often tested in moments of difficulty. There are times when fear, loss, or doubt seem to overshadow it. Yet, history reminds us that even in the darkest times, humanity has always found a way to rise again. Hope survives not because the world is perfect, but because people continue to believe in its possibility. It endures through compassion, through perseverance, and through the faith that light always follows shadow. To move forward is to embrace change without forgetting who we are. It is to understand that every challenge holds within it an opportunity to learn, to grow, to renew. The future will always bring uncertainty, but it will also bring new beginnings. Our role is to face that future with open hearts and steady resolve, to build, to listen, to act with conscience and care. There is a particular beauty in unity that cannot be found anywhere else. It is the strength of many voices coming together, the resilience of hearts that refuse to give up on one another. It is what allows societies to heal after hardship, what allows people to rebuild after loss. Unity does not erase individuality. It celebrates it, weaving each unique thread into a fabric that is both diverse and strong. Moving forward together means recognizing that our destinies are intertwined. What affects one, affects all. The progress of a nation, of a community, of the world, depends on our willingness to stand side by side. It is through collaboration that we solve the challenges of our time. From protecting our planet to ensuring that every person is treated with dignity. The world we create tomorrow depends on the unity we practice today. Hope reminds us that it is never too late to begin again. Even when progress feels slow, every act of kindness, every honest effort, every gesture of solidarity pushes the world a little closer to what it can become. Hope teaches us patience. It teaches us that meaningful change often happens quietly, through persistence rather than haste. Unity reminds us that strength lies not in isolation but in connection. We do not have to face challenges alone. We are part of a shared human story that stretches beyond borders and generations. In moments of uncertainty, unity becomes our anchor. It is the assurance that together, we can endure, rebuild, and rise. Moving forward requires vision. It requires looking beyond what is, toward what could be. It is a commitment to continuous improvement, to understanding that progress is not a single moment, but a lifelong journey. It means accepting responsibility for the future we wish to build, and having the courage to take the first step toward it. When I reflect on these ideas, hope, unity, moving forward, I see them not as distant ideals, but as living realities that must be practiced every day. They begin in families, in classrooms, in friendships, in the way we treat one another. Every act of respect, every word of encouragement, every moment of listening builds the foundation of a better future. The road ahead will end